To our other big story tonight, the governor's plan for the state budget and how it will impact you. First, a look at the proposals.
In the plan, funding for public schools would go up 1%, but to get that money, schools would need to follow a list of best practices, like offering dual enrollment or offering blended learning. Colleges would also see a boost. State aid would jump 3% to public and community colleges.
There are also plans to help keep you safe. Cash for Michigan State Police would jump 16%, which could put more troopers on the street. And your city hall will also see increases. Snyder's plan calls for a 2% increase in revenue sharing, but some cities could see an increase of up to 9% if they meet a list of goals. We will have reaction to this plan in just a moment, but first, let's go live to Lansing.
And political reporter Rick Albin is live with the governor.
This was one of the more unusual budget presentations that we've seen in the last 10 years because you didn't have the specter of a big deficit looming, just like we did 12 months ago. Governor Snyder joins us now. Governor, how much different was it going in there today, being able to say, we have some funds, we're going to be able to spend this, and we don't have to figure out what to cut to make up that big deficit?
Yeah, well, it was a much more positive experience, Rick, and that's great, because if you looked at it last year, we had to do a lot of tough things, but we did them. We had a $1.5 billion deficit. We structurally balanced the budget. We paid down liabilities. Literally $5.6 billion of liabilities were taken care of last year. So this year it's about building on that foundation, building us back in a positive way. Because we saw a good job creation last year, but we want to keep that up. So let's reinforce with the right message from government.
Took Democrats about 45 minutes to take issue with the education funding. They say they don't think there's as much money going into education as your calculations show. What's the difference? I know you've probably heard that criticism.
No, we have a good investment in education. We said let's keep the per pupil amount, the foundation allowance, the same as last year, and then we're adding additional dollars. So we're giving a best practice good student growth model of $200 million on top of that, plus another $179 million to help with retirement costs. So we are focused on that. The big difference, I would say, from prior years is its focus on student growth, where we're giving incentives to show good results and to recognize that, because too much of our system is about spending money and not enough on making sure the kids get a great education.
You say that's a new model for government across the country, or it should be a model for government across the country, and that you want Michigan to lead the way. Talk to me about revenue sharing, because all we've heard about revenue sharing cuts and cuts and cuts, but under this budget, those local governments have a chance to get some money back, but it's not automatic. Again, it's best practices.
Absolutely. So there is more money for local government. In fact, their percentage, if you looked at the statutory programs, is about a 9% increase, including counties, cities, townships. That's a pretty healthy increase. But the biggest piece we did it in was an incentive pot where they can apply to save costs. It's really about how they can do services together and win together. And we started right in Grand Rapids with a program between Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Flint to jointly process income tax returns. We gave them a grant of about $500,000. They're going to save a couple $1 million over the next few years. That's good government. Let's encourage that.
When you talk about universities, again, you said there's 3% more money, but you've got to keep your tuition below 4%, and you pointed out here on the stage earlier today that you think that will be outlined a little more clearly than it was last year when some schools perhaps didn't quite have the same interpretation as you did. But they have other qualifications, like seeing graduation rates go up.
Yeah, it's actually measuring how many students get degrees, which I think is appropriate. Degrees in general, and then degrees in critical skill areas where there are jobs and careers, and helping students find those places. And then Pell students, students that are lower income that are getting assistance. So we really want to encourage those things. The big message, if you look at all these overall, though, is that question I like to bring up to people to say, this was missing from government. If I came and asked you for $5, you wouldn't simply hand me the money. You'd say, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to really do some good with it? We didn't do that in government. We're just giving checks. And I don't think that's responsible. Our taxpayers want to make sure we're showing real results for that money. So we're happy to work with people. We just want to measure and make sure we have good results.
Governor, still want to talk about $1.4 billion for roads. Want to talk about that bridge. We're out of time. We'll pick up this conversation again later. Thank you very much for your time. We'll continue to follow this budget process. The governor says he'd like to have it done by maybe the end of May, beginning of June like they did last year. We'll be here in Lansing as it plays out. Live in Lansing, I'm Rick Albin, 24-Hour News 8.
Okay, Rick, thanks for the live report. And tonight, lawmakers are reacting to the governor's plan. We talked with several on both sides of the aisle. Here's what they're saying.
But I think all in all, it's a fairly balanced approach to a lot of things. I love the innovation, it's incentive dollars to do certain things, better practices, work together.
6 years in the House, and then I've been 2.5 in the Senate, so a total of over 8 years. This is the first time I'm really excited. It's not excited because there's money. I mean, that is obviously one component of it.
I am concerned that the overall increase in funding is relatively minor to education, given the cut we had last year, and the fact that we do have a pretty healthy surplus in our school aid fund. We should be devoting as much as possible into education.
This represents what they're calling increases, but they're still not anywhere near the kind of restorations that they should be. As far as how it drives Michigan's economy, we'll see. I think it's coming along, but I think it's mainly we're still on the ups and downs of the auto industry.